What do you do when heaven feels silent? When prayers seem to hit the ceiling and fall back to the ground? When you strain to hear God's voice, but all you perceive is absence? This is the day between, when all seems lost and hope feels distant. When yesterday's pain remains fresh and tomorrow's promise feels impossible to believe. Let's step into the silence of Saturday and discover that God is still working. Imagine Jerusalem on that Saturday after the crucifixion. The streets that had erupted with Hosanna just days before now whispered with confusion and disappointment. The air hung heavy with shattered expectations. The man they called Messiah was dead. His body lay wrapped in linen and sealed behind cold stone in a borrowed tomb. The revolution that so many expected had ended in public execution. The hope of Israel had breathed his last on a Roman cross between two thieves. The skies had darkened, the earth had trembled, but now, silence. Behind locked doors, his disciples huddled in fear. Would they be next? The authorities knew their faces, knew their association with the crucified teacher. They had left everything to follow him: their livelihoods, their families, their reputations. And now, what remained? Their teacher, their friend, their Lord was gone. What would they tell those who had believed because of their witness? How could they explain this ending to a story that had seemed so promising? Mary wept quietly, her tears seemingly endless. The man who had freed her from torment was gone. Peter sat in silence, the weight of his denials crushing his spirit. "I do not know the man," he had said. Now those words haunted him with every breath. Thomas questioned everything he thought he knew. John remembered the blood, the thorns, the final gasping words. "It is finished." But what exactly was finished? Their hopes? God's plan? And all around them, a deafening silence from heaven, the most painful sound of all. God seemed absent. Where were the angels that had announced his birth with songs of glory? Where was the voice that had thundered at his baptism? Where was the power that had raised Lazarus from 4 days of death? Nothing. No sign. No word. No comfort. Just the crushing weight of Saturday's silence and the lingering echo of Friday's horror. But silence is not abandonment. In the realm beyond human perception, God was not idle. Saturday's stillness was not divine inaction, but divine preparation. While the disciples saw only an ending, the author of life was orchestrating a beginning. The silence was not the absence of work, but work too profound for human eyes to witness or human minds to comprehend. Think of a seed in the ground. To the observer, nothing appears to be happening, just dirt covering what once had potential. But beneath the surface, in the quiet darkness, transformation occurs. Cell by cell, life rearranges itself. Roots extend, energy transfers. Life stirs in ways invisible to those who wait above. What looks like death is actually the necessary prelude to new life. The silence isn't empty. It's pregnant with possibility. This is what Saturday teaches us. God's silence is the womb of promise. When it seems he has withdrawn, he is actually drawing closer than ever before. When his voice cannot be heard, his hands are most actively at work. The tomb wasn't God's defeat. It was his canvas, a place where death itself would be undone. The silence wasn't divine absence. It was divine anticipation of Sunday's miracle. The disciples couldn't see it. They couldn't feel it. They had no evidence that anything good could emerge from Friday's horror. Their Saturday was empty of comfort, but full of divine activity they couldn't perceive. Their greatest miracle was being prepared in their darkest moment, their most profound victory taking shape in their apparent defeat. We all have our holy Saturdays, those spaces between devastation and restoration. The diagnosis has come, but healing hasn't manifested. The relationship has fractured, but reconciliation hasn't arrived. The dream has died, but new purpose hasn't emerged. The job is lost, but new opportunity hasn't appeared. The prayer has been offered, but the answer hasn't come. We exist in the tension of already but not yet, walking through valleys where God's voice seems distant. What do we do in these Saturday moments, when heaven seems wrapped in silence and God's promises feel like distant echoes? When doubt creeps in and whispers that Friday's darkness is all there is? When hope feels foolish and faith feels fragile? We wait, not in passive resignation, but in active anticipation. We hold fast to what we know rather than surrendering to what we feel. We remember that God's timeline rarely matches our expectations, but His promises never fail. His apparent absence is often the prelude to His most dramatic entrance. His silence is frequently the preparation for His clearest revelation. Consider the ancient Israelites by the Red Sea, trapped between an army and an ocean, crying out to a God who seemed to have led them to destruction. Consider Joseph in prison, forgotten and falsely accused, wondering if his dreams were merely delusions as years passed without vindication. Consider Job in his suffering, questioning a God who remained silent through his pain. In each case, Saturday's silence preceded Sunday's deliverance. These Saturday moments reveal the true nature of faith. Faith isn't seeing, it's trusting without seeing. It's feeling the full weight of silence yet refusing to believe it's the final word. It's standing firm when circumstances suggest retreat. It's believing in Sunday while living through Saturday. It's remembering that silence doesn't equal absence, and delay doesn't equal denial. God works in the dark. When the stone is rolled across the tomb of your hopes, when the night stretches long and dawn seems impossibly distant, when heaven's silence feels like rejection, remember Saturday. Remember that between crucifixion and resurrection lies preparation. Between your pain and your deliverance lies purpose. Between God's promise and its fulfillment lies His perfect timing. Your Saturday is not punishment, it's process. It's not divine neglect, it's divine incubation of something beautiful. Be still and know that I am God. This ancient invitation reminds us that sometimes the most spiritual action is stillness, not frantic. Praise the Lord.